What's up? Welcome inside a live edition of the Scores Table. Brian Haenchen, Courtney Delks, Danny Riego, Josh Sabol here with you. I think this is our second live show officially, but the first with everybody together, and the second show of 2024 with everybody together, which is just pretty exciting. I know Courtney was really jazzed about it. Danny won't shut up about it, and Josh is just cool as a cucumber.
Listen, I'm just trying not to curse on this show. Like, if I don't curse on the show, I'm good.
Do you think? I wonder if people notice the large gaps that we have in the show. if they piece together how much editing you have to do sometimes.
Yeah.
As we get going. But no, we're here to talk about the sectional draw that was conducted today, the rigmarole with the bingo balls. The brackets are set. We discussed some alternatives to this format last week, but tonight the focus is on the matchups. And, man, there's some really good brackets, some really messed up brackets. So, yeah, we're going to start generally, I think, with Class 2A. And the one that I wanted to start with, Danny, we were chatting about this a little bit beforehand, but and Eastern Hancock for the fourth year in a row, I believe, play before Saturday night in the championship game. This year it's coming in Friday's semifinal. Triton Central and Eastern Hancock kind of, I wrote it in my 10 takeaways on IndyStar.com. The bingo balls blew it again, I feel like, because it's two best teams in the sectional, and instead of getting them on a Saturday night, we get them in a semifinal on Friday, which doesn't really seem right considering the historic nature of the Eastern Hancock senior class and then Triton Central, what they brought back from last year.
Yeah, I think when you look at Triton Central, well, really when you look at the tournament just in general, it's a really cool opportunity for kids to make a name for themselves, regardless of what class. And sometimes you have kids that maybe you put the clause like, if they were at a 4A school, maybe they're a more recognizable name. At Triton Central, they have one of those kids. Mary Rose Felling's a real player. And so, the chalky pick, I think, is Triton in that sectional. But it'll be a fun one to watch because they're very well coached and very well connected. But she's a great player.
Yeah, that will be fun. And I mentioned that this is kind of like you get a glimpse to see the next chapter in that rivalry because you get the freshman in Kenzie Cook, got the name right, pronunciation this time, against Mary Rose Felling, who really kind of had a coming out party. It felt like in last year's first round game, I was out there at Triton Central. They just couldn't get it done against an Eastern Hancock team that went on a historic run and capped off a big season, and they're going to try and do the same there again. So that'll be a fun one to watch. And then one other one from 2A that I wanted to talk about before I throw it to Courtney and Josh is Lapel and its sectional, the defending runner-ups from Class 2A. There are four good teams in that sectional, four top-notch teams, it seems like, with Wapahani, Monroe Central, Alexandria Monroe, and Lapel. So it only stands to reason that all four of those teams get thrown together in the same quadrant of the bracket, while Winchester, Muncie Burris, and West Dell are left to fight it out up at the top, which is unfortunate. On the upside, though, we're guaranteed to see a third matchup between Alexandria Monroe and Lapel. Alexandria Monroe has a really special player in Jacqueline Hosier who's averaging around 26 a game, plus 4 assists, 4 steals a game. Lapel obviously has Lanaya Wills and Maddie Pointer. So an interesting opening round game there. But again, you just wish you could see it on opening night, or didn't have to see it on opening night.
Yeah, and another thing to think about, too, I was looking at some of these dates, like Triton Central and Eastern Hancock, they play March 25th. Then they don't play again until March 4th. I'm sorry, they don't play. Yeah, their last game's February 25th, and they don't play again until March 4th. That's a lot of time off. If you watched the NFL playoffs last night, like it took the Baltimore Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers about a half to get going. And, when you're playing in a tournament like this and it's one and done, like I'm sure these coaches, very, very experienced coaches, they'll have their teams ready. But that's definitely something that you're thinking about that back of your mind, that you want to be sharp. And when you have that much time off, that's definitely a concern.
Courtney, for you, when you were playing, do you remember did you have some of those big gaps between the end of your regular season and the start of sectionals, or did you guys go pretty quickly from, whenever your regular season finale was right to that Tuesday?
Well, when I played, we normally went pretty straight into it. And I remember the way our schedule was, we always played. So Marion was like a county rival. And we always played them like the week or two before going into the sectional, which was a great matchup for us going against a 4A school before we went into our sectional.
Did you like that? Did it kind of get the juices flowing having a rivalry game like that, jumping right in?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then on the flip side, a few years later, I coached at Marion, and that game was like, it was moved, and we played it in like November, where it was the rivalry game. I didn't like it because you're just trying to figure your team out. The teams are just trying to get into it. So having that, big time game right before sectional, I loved it because it really set the tone for this going into tournament.
Josh, what about you? How did you guys handle it when you were at Franklin?
What do you mean as far as what our week would be like?
Yeah, like scheduling wise,
Yeah.
did you try to stack up an extra game late in the regular season?
Yeah, so we always played Jennings County our last game of the year, which I loved because that's like another tournament game because darn well, if you're going down there, they can be very well coached, can be very well organized. Woodard's a stud. So you go into that as it's a tournament game, and I think it just keeps your players on their toes. I never liked having a bunch of time off or scheduling a not important game. I always liked going to that game against Jennings County. So coaches, I'm sure they've thought about this a million times. That final game, I never wanted to rest my players. I never wanted to pull the reins back. I always wanted to make sure they were playing against a top team, so that way we go in the tournament ready to go.
We'll get a chance to see that exact matchup, actually. Franklin and Jennings County, a really good one, a potential semi-state matchup, which is something we're going to talk about here towards the end of the show. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how some teams handle that. One more note from 2A before we jump up to Class 3A. Numbers 1 and 2 in 2A are going to play Friday night, more than likely, in North Knox and South Knox. Another casualty of both the sectional and the draw. But, that's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere, what should be an unbelievable game down south. They went to overtime, I think it was, during the regular season matchup, so that'll be a lot of fun. In Class 3A, unless somebody wanted to take the reins and talk about a specific sectional, I'll get the ball rolling with Bishop Chatard. And that sectional, one that interested me because I saw Brebeuf play on Friday night. They're having a great season. 15 wins are their most since 2006-07. They got some good young talent, and their reward is playing Bishop Chatard, the favorite, on opening night. So that'll be an interesting sectional. And then on the other side, you have Heritage Christian. So if it goes chalk, you'll have Heritage Christian trying to beat Bishop Chatard for the first time in 3 tries. But if you think back to last year, that one, it seemed like every single game that Chatard was involved in was down to the wire. It was a 1-point win over Brebeuf, I think double or triple overtime against Guerin, and then they beat Heritage Christian in the finale. So that section always delivered, and it's always super fun to watch.
Well, yeah, if you look at the bracket, everyone's above 500 except for Guerin, and they're pretty close to 500. So, there's no cupcakes in this sectional. Everyone seems to have been having a pretty good season, and like you said, that Brebeuf Chatard game on March 1st is going to be a good one.
February 1st.
Yeah,
I was impressed.
They have it on there. I think they have their dates wrong on the bracket. It's not me. It never is. Just so you know.
I would never blame you.
That's what I'm here for, Josh.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
that's right.
But no, I saw Brebeuf on Friday too. I was at the same game that you were, Hank. We didn't have a chance to really talk about it. I know we texted briefly kind of during the game, but I came away very impressed with Jalen Bowling. A lot's been made of the 27s and their impact that they're having, and she's had a name that's bounced around the central Indiana area for a while, and admittedly that was the first time that I really got a chance to really watch her. And I was sitting in the front row. If you ever been in Brebeuf's gym, they are constantly walking up and down the sidelines with squeegees because your feet are literally on the floor, so you're really close to the action. And there were a couple of times where Bowling was just guarding somebody right next to me, or she was guarding a sideline out of bounds or taking the ball out herself. She's got really long arms. She's built like a college basketball player. She didn't look like a 27. And then having said all that, she hit 6 threes in a big time game. That was a girls boys doubleheader. I also wanted to point out that was number 1 versus number 2 on the boys side. So it wasn't just 6 threes. It was 6 threes in front of probably the biggest crowd that they've played in front of. So she seems, to me, without knowing her personally at all, she seems to have some big game DNA, which kind of excited me. That was really fun to watch.
Oh yeah, she popped. I remember seeing her for the first time at the county tournament this year, and she popped against North Central. It was kind of quiet. There's some other storylines I was tracking the game, but it's this kid's something. And it, like we've talked about before, it's fun seeing, and I'm sure for you and Courtney too, you guys have that perspective too, just how cool it is, just seeing how far the kid can come over just the course of a few weeks like that. I mean, she's grown by leaps and bounds. But yeah, she's a great player. The Pate kid, she got hurt early on against Guerin, so we'll see what her status is. But that's another underclassman. I think she's only a sophomore. She's a really talented player. And then Ella Miller is a really good defender. They have some good pieces there for Brebeuf. It's just a matter of if they can get by Chatard, we've talked about before, and just that physicality that they bring, and the big game experience factor is huge, as I'm sure everybody here can attest to just how important that is this time of year. Go ahead, Danny.
What do you Hank? What do you make of the Twin Lakes sectional? I mean, that probably has in 3A, outside of some of the individual names, like, whether it be a Runner or a Wiseman, this one seems pretty stacked to me with teams that have 15 wins, and it's got Twin Lakes with Olivia Nickerson, the record holder. It's got, Addie Bousman. It's got all-time leading scores at their respective schools, like 19-1 Rensselaer. Like, what do you make of all that?
Oh, it's going to be a blast. And it feels like they kind of got it right, where Rensselaer got the first round bye. They deserve that. They have the best record. And they had a lead on Hamilton Heights, or it was closer. At least it was close and competitive. I was following it as best I could from the game that I was covering Friday night, or Saturday night. Rensselaer's a really good team. You mentioned the individual star power in that bracket. Olivia Nickerson has a 3-point record. Addie Bozeman, the junior, is just as good. I mean, she's really fun to watch, kind of a do-it-all player if you have a chance to see her. And then at West Lafayette, Adrianne Tolen is having an unbelievable season. Yeah, she set the school's all-time scoring record earlier this month, like just a week or two ago. So she's an unbelievable talent. So there's a lot of individual star power there from Monticello and the West Side. But then you also have a great team like Rensselaer Central. And I don't know a ton about Western, but I know they're having a great season so far. And they were ranked, I mean, they're a top 10 team in the state too. So that feels like probably the most difficult sectional pound for pound in Class 3A. So Godspeed to whoever's trying to get out of there, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And the matchups are compelling, where you have like a Twin Lakes and a Western right off the bat. And you're going to probably get a West Lafayette against Rensselaer Central on night 2 for a right to go to the championship game. So it'll be really fun. Last year, it was Twin Lakes that ran through it. This year, I think Rensselaer is probably the favorite, but who knows? The kid like Tolen, maybe she goes off and leads into a sectional championship. So, that one will be really exciting to watch.
Tolen might find herself on the all-star team if she gets out of that sectional too. Like, she's really good. She's in the long line of Tolens. I don't know who are cousins and who are sisters and all of that, but somebody had told me casually that she's the last of the Tolen bunch, but she's really good. I saw her play at McCutcheon earlier in the year, and she, like, bowling, that's like, just talking about like her frame. She just seemed more mature and seemed more physical. And so I kind of look at, a potential Tolen Saturday night matchup with Twin Lakes and Bousman and Nickerson to see who she would guard. I think that would be kind of an interesting thing there. But yeah, there's a lot of star power there, but Tolen's really good. Yeah, that'll be really fun. And she's going to Missouri too, which I like to think of as God's country. So she's going to Missouri S&T. So it's in the same school system, and it's just a great state. I like Missouri. Anyway,
shout out.
Yeah, shout out Missouri.
Show me state. I saw that on a bumper sticker one time. I don't know.
It's a great motto. It's a couple other sectionals that just jump out. There's not a ton noteworthy on it. It's just examples of the draw doing it right. Like, I want to be fair to the bingo balls. Hamilton Heights and Jay County are separated in the Yorktown sectional. They're the two best. They're always usually the two best. It always comes down, it seems like, to those two teams. They're on opposite sides of the bracket, and then also work in Hamilton Heights' favor. They avoided Yorktown, which gave them trouble last year in the sectional. And then in the Cascade sectional, which has Danville and Tri-West, the Hendricks County rivals are on opposite sides of the bracket, which is nice, because I think it's probably going to come down to those two teams, which will be fun. Anything else that you guys wanted to throw in, observations, anything like that from 3A before we move up to the big schools?
Let's go 4.
All right. So somebody else pick where we start in 4A. I need to breathe.
Okay. All right, let's go to Columbia City. Remember, we started this podcast. We are a Columbia City podcast, blue jean capital of the world. We learned this. Okay. I mean, if you look at the teams in this Columbia City bracket, okay, obviously, you have Homestead and Columbia City on each, on either side of the bracket, which the ping pong balls worked well there for us. But Huntington North, they're 500, so they're no slouch. They'll be waiting there in the second round. Okay, but I mean, we could get a classic in the final between Columbia City and Homestead, because both of those programs, they have rich history in girls basketball, and that would be probably one of the best, most exciting finals in 4A.
Yeah, that was a rare win for the ping pong balls tonight. I don't think they had the best of nights. I didn't really care for their compete level, but you know what? I think they did a good job there. I just wanted to add that in there. I think they did it right.
If we get home, so Columbia City, in just almost developing relationships with a lot of those people, because they're listeners and supporters of the podcast. They know that Homestead is there, and they know that that's the step that they have to climb. And they know that 20-3 2 years ago and 20-3 last year and 18-2 this year can only really be qualified and punctuated with a sectional win against Homestead. So they're putting a lot on this game, I would suspect. But the biggest thing for me is that it's played at their crib. And having never been there, but seeing some of the highlights, that looks like an impossible place to play. And I would assume that Columbia City will represent it there at that game on Saturday night. And that will probably be one of the best Saturday night environments anywhere in the state. That's also of note, not just from an emotional perspective for Columbia City, but Homestead is a basketball team that likes to shoot the ball. So is that game going to come down to who shoots it better? We don't know. Is it going to come down to Baxter versus Epps, who has more input or output, in offensive production? We don't know. But what I do know is that one has all the makings, like Josh said, of an instant classic. But I think Columbia City has a huge advantage playing that one at home. The other thing to point out, too, is there's time to sharpen the axe. Neither of those teams got the bye. And I think there's a fine line, and Josh was kind of alluding to it earlier, there's a fine line between rest and rust. Both these teams are going to be playing really well by Saturday night. And if chalk holds, we're going to get that basketball game on Saturday, and it'll be at the Indy.
It was cool talking with Columbia City at the Hall of Fame Classic. I mean, the turnout there was unbelievable. That was probably the best turnout, I think, of any of the teams that I've seen so far at the Hall of Fame Classic on the girls' side. And it's cool just talking to the girls about just how that support's always been there. And I think it was Kendra Sheets, who recently joined the 1,000 Point Club, actually, shortly after Addie Baxter did. Kendra talked about growing up, and that's what she always looked forward to, is a chance to play in front of those crowds and have that opportunity to play there, which is really cool. And you see it come to life. And just even watching highlights on Twitter and social media from the TV stations up there, when they played Norwell, it was a packed house, and the sectional games last year was unbelievable. So like you said, Danny, I mean, for this to be in Columbia City kind of adds the mystique to it. It's going to be unbelievable. There's the proximity of the rivalry and all that stuff. And I mean, look, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And in that case, it's Homestead. So for Columbia City to have to go through them in the championship game, that seems fitting. And I'm really excited to see how that plays out, because it feels like Columbia City's favorite, but at the same time, I'd never be dumb enough to bet against Homestead and Rod Parker and just the job that he's done up there, just in the short time that I've lived in Indy.
Courtney, when you played, did you have any sectionals at home, or did you have to play on the road in all your sectionals?
We had a lot of sectionals at home, and we always remember we had a double overtime or triple overtime dandy against the Taylor Titans. They had the Wall Girl, the Oliver sisters. They were it was kind of reminded me when we're talking about this matchup that we'll probably see on Saturday is bringing up the emotion side of me of what we had to go through. Whichever team got out of our sectional between us and Taylor was going to make a really far run in the state tournament. And so as a player, they're this is what you prepare for. And so if I'm Columbia City, like this week at school and just the adrenaline, like I am absolutely pumped. And there's nothing that they can do to prepare anymore. Like it's already been done. It's what they did back in June and July and all off season. Now it's the time. And so they're ready. It's just making those tweaks IQ wise, but that is going to be a fun basketball game to watch.
As a shooter, how much of an advantage is it playing at home?
The energy so I think that every time there's a made shot in a basketball game, especially in today's game, the 3-point basket, like the energy you get from the crowd. I mean, the first quarter you make a layup, the crowd's going to act like it's a game winner. And just that energy that feeds on and off between the crowd and the team, like when you're playing at home, you can't beat it. Like it just fuels it.
Yeah, I agree. Like especially when you're someone that because when you're a shooting team, like you're looking at the backdrops, you're looking at like the rims, you're trying to test the rims, and knowing when you're playing at home, like that's real comforting if you're a team that loves to shoot the ball.
It's got to help too, just being able to stay in that routine, right? Like you don't have to worry about getting on the bus. I mean, were there instances for either of you, either coaching or playing, where it was beneficial to kind of get out of that routine, get out of the comfort zone a little bit, or was it always preferred like, oh, this kind of stinks having to travel out somewhere? I wish we were playing the sectional at home. Maybe that was a stupid question. I don't know. You can yell.
No, it's not stupid. I know this sounds crazy, but I always like playing on the road because there's nothing better than playing against a rival or playing against like a top team at their place, beating them at their place. It's kind of like this us against the world mentality. And there's no better feeling than like embarrassing someone on their home court. That's just me though. I'm sick. So,
well, short of embarrassment though, imagine if Homestead does win that game on Saturday and crushes Columbia City. I mean, because that's the thing about sectionals, like it just ends. Like your season just ends. Nobody's ready for it. Nobody's prepared for it. And it's not only just going to be the 11 players on the varsity roster and the 4 coaches, but now it's going to be 4,000 Columbia City residents too. Like they got to get that game. And so here I am in the bottom right, just putting a ton of pressure on Columbia City. But, they know Homestead's there. It's just, like I said, if we can get that one, that'll be just.
Yeah, but what if they didn't? You just blew it for them.
I know. God, I'll have Josh write a second formal apology.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I don't know if the jeans capital of the world will get the job.
Yeah, the blue jean capital of the world.
Courtney, what about you? I'm interested to hear your thoughts, though, following up on what Josh was talking about.
From high school to college, I would say 2 different things. But like in high school, I loved playing at home. We brought a great crowd, and our following, like the energy from our student section. But if we went on the road, like everybody followed us too. So it didn't really matter whether we were home or away. And just as a player, like you just got to be ready. No matter what the environment is, you just have to be ready to go. And so either way, wherever it's at, like your season's on the line. Like you gotta show up and you gotta be ready to go.
Yeah. 4A, Danny, why don't you pick our next 4A section that we go to?
Let's knock the region out.
Region last.
What's that?
Oh, the region, like the region.
The region. Yeah, the region.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so smart.
Sorry. Is that too much?
No,
of
it's
an
fine. We're
Indiana
even
term
now.
For you.
Listen, the language barrier is strong here, Danny, and you're really not helping the cause. And I really don't appreciate you bringing light to it like that. So go ahead, talk about your region or regionals or whatever. Sorry, the region. I know you guys exist and you're awesome. Danny?
Lake Central is the class of sectional 1, right? I mean, I think everybody agrees with that. I mean, Josh will talk about how guards win games. I mean, I can hear him saying it now, and Lake Central has like 11 of them. Yeah. They really do, and some of them are really, really good. The other thing that they have is post-game experience. Like this was a Final Four team last year. So the question that is presented to everybody when looking at the brackets of the Lake Central is, can anybody knock them off? And so I was curious. I just kind of went back and looked and watched some highlights and watched some parts of games. Lake Central, of course, as the ping pong balls would have it, draw Munster first. Okay. So take everybody from Lake Central away. The best player in that sectional outside of anybody at Lake Central is a kid by the name of Grayson Gilliard. Probably she's a 2026, probably one of the 10 best players in the 26 class across the state. And we don't really talk about her at all down here in the Indianapolis market because she is up there in the region, but she's averaging 26 a game. Yes, you have to contextualize that because of the schedule, but this kid's a real player. And when Munster played Lake Central earlier in the year, that was a 34-31 basketball game with 3 minutes left. Now, Lake Central ended up getting away from them and winning by 25, but a one-possession game. So Gilliard is the kind of kid, when Munster plays Lake Central, can she go out and do something really special over sectionals? Can she go out and get 30 and 6 or 30 and 10 or 30 or something really special like 40? I think I don't want to say that it's a scary game for Lake Central, but it's a scary game for Lake Central because anytime a kid that's as talented as Grayson Gilliard is on the floor, it's going to make you prepare. But I think Lake Central is very well coached. I love what Joe Huppenthal does. They're battle tested in going to the Bedford North Lawrence tournament over the holidays, playing in the Holiday Classic. All of these things will come to pass. But just Lake Central's got to be the chalk right there. That's got to be the pick, right?
Oh yeah. Okay. I think so. Probably an odds-on favorite situation there. Josh, did you want to jump in?
No, I was just saying I'm looking at Sagarin, and I know it's not the end-all, be-all, but it looks like Lake Central will probably be like a 15, 16-point advantage over Munster, and they're playing at Lake Central, so I mean that probably gives you an extra couple points as well. So yeah, I mean it would be a chalky pick, but like Danny was saying, Munster's had a great year as well, and that's why you play the game.
I'll stay in that region of the state and talk about sectional 2A or sectional 2, Valparaiso and Chesterton right off the bat. And I think that those are probably the two favorites in that sectional. They go head to head right away. Chesterton has some really talented juniors, some young players coming through that are really good. Valparaiso is the team to beat, I'd say, with Lily Barnes, the senior that they have, who's back after a knee injury last year. So they're a really good team. That'll be interesting. And on the other side, you have Crown Point with Ava Zalkowski. I know that we've talked about her before. Just a huge presence inside and kind of unstoppable. Like she's adjusted really well to all the different defenses the teams have thrown at her. It's just a matter of, can she score enough and can they hold the opponent to a few enough points for 40, 50 from her to get the job done, or can somebody else step up and find their way? And that's kind of been a hit or miss progress, growing pains and all that over the course of the season, but they managed to avoid the two toughest teams in that sectional. So get them in a one-game situation. You never know what happens, but Valparaiso will be a tough team to bounce.
Yeah, it looks like all three of those teams, Valpo, Chesterton, and Crown Point, are all within like 10 points of each other. It's at Valpo. Those games look like they, probably be a 3 or 4 possession game going into it.
Shouts to Valpo, by the way. They brought it with their watch party tonight. I don't know if you guys saw that, but they were watching it at like a swimming pool. So everybody was they were out in the aquatic center. They had on the screen, and the kids are like swimming, watching the selection show. So I thought that was pretty cool and pretty unique. And Becca Gert, by the way, is the senior who's back after tearing up her knee last year, and she's been phenomenal. So she's been working really well with Lily Barnes, and Lily Barnes actually moved. She dealt with a back injury over the summer, but she's back healthy and was feeling back to herself over Christmas break. Lily's been playing some point guard for Valpo this year, so she's kind of getting used to that role when I talked to them at Noblesville in December. So fun facts to know and tell.
I love that.
Worth mentioning too, Ava Zayalkowski had a game where she had, I think, 55 earlier this season.
Yeah.
So if she can get to Saturday night, and that's kind of the way that I approach it is, when do the really good teams play each other? And then if it's not Saturday night, when do they play each other? And then who could end up matching up? And, with my background with players, Lillian Barnes and Ava Zayakowski being on opposite sides of the bracket, some sort of setup right there where you could get that kind of matchup. It would be really cool for Ava to kind of channel that inner 55 and see if she could do it again on Saturday. Because Crown Point, we're not that far removed from when they won the state championship. Just
correct.
Yeah. So,
and they have an easier path. So Crown Point
should
get to the finals.
Yeah, no question. So Yeah, I know Chris is still up there, and he just made a deep run, and so we'll see if Ava can do it again.
Just going right down the line, South Bend Washington's the favorite in sectional 3. They almost had a situation. I was texting with Austin Ho, Austin Ho. I need to learn how to pronounce Austin's last name. Austin H. I was texting with Austin H, and he said they were almost in a situation where South Bend Washington would go 14 days between games if they would have gotten that bye. So that would have been a 2-week layover, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Their last game is January 20th.
Yeah.
And it got postponed, it says.
Yeah, so that could have been a tough situation for them, but they avoided that. The sectional below that one, though, Northridge, where you have Northridge and you have Warsaw. I think they're playing on the opening round. They are. And that'll be a really interesting game. Warsaw just knocked off Homestead the other night. They've been on fire from 3. Brooke Zartman actually went 7 for 11 and picked up 24 points in that game over against Homestead, their first win against them since 2001. And then Zartman went out the next night against Concord and set the school single-season record for threes. So Warsaw is one of those teams that if they can stay hot from 3 like that, man, they're going to be dangerous. And they're playing a top 10 team in the state right now, or will be playing a top 10 team in the state in Northridge. So another one to watch. I guess that's a little south of the region.
Yeah. But
yeah,
like you said, those are close. I mean, there's like 3 or 4 good teams in that one. So that's going to be a real competitive section.
It feels like it's a little bit more balanced, like I don't know about the state championship potential, but it feels like overall there's some more balance. And like once we get into some of these subsequent rounds with the way the regional draw lined up, that we're going to see some different teams popping through in the semi-state, which is kind of cool.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. We'll skip over sectional 6 or 7. Anybody want to talk about Columbia City? We talked about Fort Wayne Snyder. I think the intrigue there is probably with the regional draw, although they do play Northrop, I believe, early on. But the real intrigue, I feel like, with Snyder is probably in the regional round. We'll get to see McCutcheon. We'll wait a little bit for Lily Graves' postseason debut because they drew a first-round bye. And then that brings us to Sectional 8, the group of death, the one that's a pain for everybody involved. It's never easy. And honestly, they kind of just copy and pasted from last year. And if I'm being honest, I don't hate it. Like I kind of like the way that it's set up, where you have Westfield HSE Carmel Fishers on night 1, and then Zionsville playing the winner of the first game, and Owensville getting winner of the second.
Now, you know how we were saying earlier about buys, like, do we like them? Do we not like them? Like, honestly, if I had an experienced team and I was playing against these teams, I would definitely want the buy 100%. Because, I mean, if you look at these teams, like, in any given year, any 6 of those teams can beat anybody on any given night. I mean, it's just unbelievable, the quality of players and coaches that are in this sectional. It's unbelievable.
That's
every year it just never disappoints.
That's what's so fascinating about that sectional specifically, is because on theoretically the bye is good because it's like you get a chance to rest. It's whatever percentage less chance of you losing a game and getting bounced. But on the other side, you get a chance to get the juices flowing. You're playing on that stage, so you're used to the environment. You've already had to beat a good team, so you kind of have the momentum going a little bit. So you're rolling into that semifinal on Friday. Whereas if you get the bye, you're coming in cold. You have to adjust to the environment. You have to get used to the rims and all that stuff. You got to do it quick because you're playing a team that's going to be jumping your butt right away. So it's kind of a unique trade-off. Now, that being said, like you said, Josh, I mean, these are such experienced teams. Zionsville just played HSE at HSE, I think, on Friday. Right. So there's some familiarity there. Noblesville Fishers, I mean, they know each other like the back of their hands and have played in this game 3 years in a row now, right? At least. So, yeah, I wonder if that kind of offsets it. But there's always a unique counterbalance that I don't hear about in other sectionals, but I hear about a decent amount and think about a decent amount with Sectional 8.
I would almost compare, this came to me real time here, that sectional to like the Big Ten tournament. Like, it's crucial if you can get those buys to play a little bit later on if you're more experienced. But like, you got to show those games aren't a given. Doesn't matter what any team on any given night in the Big Ten tournament can knock anybody off. And that sectional reminds me of the Big Ten tournament. Like you don't know who's going to come out.
Yeah.
I think the buy was big.
It's like, I guess the quote unquote like inexperienced group is Carmel, but Coach Reisinger's got 4 state championships, so I kind of think he knows what he's doing. You know what I mean? So it's like all 6 of these teams. Like I said, it's a gauntlet for sure.
I think looking at the draw, looking at the ping pong balls, I think the bye for Noblesville is big. I don't know if the lack of bye is big for Hamilton Southeastern or anything else that happened, but that's the one that jumped out to me because and a lot's been made of it. A lot's been made of it by me, quite frankly. But Noblesville only has 1 3-game winning streak the entire season, and if you don't get the bye, now you're asking them to win 3 sectional basketball games in a week against top shelf opponents. So I think Noblesville really made themselves. The ping pong balls made Noblesville more of a competitor in this sectional than if they didn't get that bye. So I think it was most important for them to get it, and they got it. For me, I think everybody knows it just, despite what happened last night and this week with Hamilton Southeastern, they are probably entering this as the on paper favorite, but it's interesting because if you look at the 3 wins that HSE has against the sectional opponents, against the other 3 really good sectional opponents in Zionsville, Noblesville, and Fishers respectively, like Zionsville HSE, Zionsville had a 10-point lead in the 3rd quarter and a 10-point lead in the 4th quarter before they fouled Caldwell and Leedy out of the basketball game. HSE comes back to win. Noblesville, that was the game where I think Reagan Wilson has like 10 points in 90 seconds. They lose by a possession there. And then the Fishers game is famously the Maya Makaluski free throws with 1.9 seconds left that game. So they won, but I think if you're Zionsville, Noblesville, and Fishers, you didn't win those games. But I think the narrative in their locker room is, we know we can win. Mm-hmm. And that's got to be a really scary thing for the favorite. But as a fan, I am happy because we're going to get the same dream Friday night without an upset that we had last year. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what Hank was saying. But I remember sitting there for the first game on Friday and then the second game and not moving and just watching great basketball. And we could potentially have 4 really good teams in a Final Four kind of setting on Friday night again at Hamilton Southeastern.
And even if Westfield were to pull the upset of HSE on Tuesday night, like that'd still be a wild Friday night, because then you have Westfield in there against Zionsville, who I think they hung with during the regular season. But regardless, Westfield beat Fishers at the beginning of the year. So that'd be really cool. And Ellie Kelleher just went nuts the other night against Brownsburg, and they lost at the buzzer. We'll talk about that later this week, but that'd be really fun too. And I think for a team like Zionsville, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I feel like for them, the bye is important too. It just gives them the chance to rest everybody. Like they've been needing a lot from Allie Caldwell and Emma Hahn. So it's good to give them a chance. They don't have a super deep bench. So to give those top kids a break and give them a chance to recoup ahead of what's going to be a battle regardless who comes out there is really important. And Danny, like you said, I think for Zionsville, it's been so long since they've won. I think they won last year's win in that sectional was the first game that they'd won. I think they beat Westfield. The first time they'd won a game in that sectional in a really long time, maybe ever. Either way, at least this time they have the confidence to build off of, hey, we were up 10 late. We just messed some things up. It's fine. And from HSE's perspective, again, we'll get into this more later, but I think the fact that you've dug a double-digit hole against 3 teams this week to varying results, a near comeback, a comeback, and kind of a lopsided loss, where you got to take it to you by Center Grove. I think that's a good learning experience and a good opportunity to learn from.
Well, Josh, what is the week? Just real quick, what does the week look like for you? If you're like Andy McGuire, just plays Hamilton Southeastern, fouls out 2 of his 3 senior guards. They blow 2 double-digit leads. Now you have the bye. You're waiting on Hamilton Southeastern. Yep. Andy does have a reputation of being a very good coach within this sectional.
Very well organized.
Are you putting something in? I mean, that's got to be. I mean, it's not a nightmare for HSE, but I don't think it's the ideal setup for them, quite honestly, because of the familiarity and the coaching prowess of that staff and the senior laden backcourt. But I don't know, from a coaching perspective, what are you doing after a loss? And now you have the bye, like now you have live scout. Talk about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, like you said, they just played and they lost by 4. So obviously, and your players know that you can hang with them and you can beat them. I'm probably giving, some of my players like a little bit of rest, like maybe Monday is just like, some light shooting, maybe we do some like athletic development, like some stretching, but maybe our athletic trainer comes in and does some things with our girls, but we're probably going to get out of there in like an hour because I'm sure a lot of his starters have played a lot of minutes, and obviously you want to be fresh for that game. But then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're game planning. Like I'm sure that Zionsville staff and Andy, they probably have some sets that they want to add some wrinkles or some counters that they showed the first time against HSC. That they want to have. Maybe there's some new special teams like side outs and blobs that you want to have ready, or maybe, you've been working on like a matchup zone or something that you want to throw at them. So it's nice to have that extra time to have that stuff ready, if you need it. Now, I'm not showing it right away, like because I think we can beat them, based on, the last game we played. But, like you said, like you were saying, you definitely want to be ready if you need to, throw in some of those new wrinkles to beat them.
You mentioned the atmosphere and what we could be in store for next Friday, not this upcoming Friday, 2 Fridays from now at HSC. And that brought me back to what we had last year. I mean, that was just unbelievable, just such a cool moment for just high school sports in general, let alone girls basketball. But Courtney, I'm curious for you, as you look back on your career playing coaching, what were some of the more memorable state tournament environments you got to be a part of?
I would say definitely the sectionals at our home here in Oak Hill, packed out, sold out games. And we had us and Taylor, Northwestern, that were all very good basketball teams during that time playing in that sectional. And then we had we played at the Stardome against some really good teams from Fort Wayne. And then we played up in Elkhart at the up there. And then the state finals, we played at Bankers Life and Lucas Oil. So both of those were just that environment. So lots everywhere that we went. It was near sellout crowd. So feel good moments, like thinking back on it makes you smile. And like it was fun basketball.
I love covering sports in those smaller communities just because everybody is so passionate, and like everywhere you go, like people are pumped up about it, like regardless of the sport. That's one really cool thing that I've really grown to appreciate over the years is just the way that sport comes and just follows everybody around. It's cool for the kids too.
Oh yeah. I'm from a one stoplight, little 4-way stop town. And so at the fire stations right there, they always have their whatever is going on in the town on this little board. They change the letters on it. And so during that time, I remember it said last one out of town, turn off the lights.
There's a football coach in Gregory, South Dakota, who once said like Friday nights are a good time to rob a house in our little town of Gregory. And that's something that I like to break out. So if you hear me promoting larceny, I swear to God, it's just a joke. Sectional 9, moving along. Unless anybody else had any thoughts on Sectional 8. We got 2 weeks
we'll unpack it.
Parse through this thing.
I'm curious to know. I have a question.
Yeah.
So like in our small town, so like you win sectional, you read regional, semi-state, like they have the fire trucks and they do like a fire truck parade of the bus and like cars falling, everybody's out waving at everybody. Do they do that in the big city?
Josh? Oh yeah, like when we went on our runs 3 years ago and 2 years ago, like our athletic director Bill Doty at Franklin, he was awesome. Like he had everyone in town like ready to go to meet us downtown. Like we'd have an escort from the police department to go through downtown Franklin. And there was thousands of people that were like waiting for us. And the girls got out. We had music going. They brought us out pizzas. It's awesome. Like this is why, like players and coaches do what we do is for this time of the year. And there's nothing better.
I just got chills.
Yeah.
What type of pizza is like? What type of pizza?
Oh gosh, I think we had Greeks. I think we had Greeks pizza.
Okay, no.
Like delivered to us, like on, and it was ready for us, like on the bus. And I just remember, like we always had like a portable like boom box and stuff. And like we would get out at like all the stops, and like the girls would just like start dancing and stuff like that. It was awesome. It was so much fun.
I love it. So, Courtney, when you played in your state championship, like your state deep state tournament run years, like were there like drive home, like did you have the caravan waiting for you guys when you got back, like people lying in the streets or whatever?
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, like mile-long line of cars. Like it was, and then like when we went, like a lot of the surrounding county like schools, like there was like a more following than just our community. Like everybody, you know, was kind of in with our team and from the north and followed us down there too. So it was cool.
That's fantastic. I'm always curious, like, is there a lot of that like support from surrounding communities, like maybe not rivals per se, but like other teams, like other communities, like do they jump on the bandwagon when a team like yours or Josh, even if Franklin goes on a run?
I think if you're not a team full of like cocky jerks, like you'll get that. But like if you're a team that like if you don't have class and you don't play basketball the right way and you're like, then no, they're not. They're gonna cheer against you. But if you are playing basketball the right way and you have good sportsmanship and like it's an actual good program, like yes, you'll get people following you.
Josh, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, like there was always a lot of people that were like reaching out like via text or you know, I remember like it was neat. Like we went and won regional down in Bedford, like we weren't even ranked. And I remember after I got on the bus, like I've never had so many text messages in voicemails. So yeah, there was always a lot of support.
Yeah. Moving on to sectional number 9. Pendleton Heights. This is one that confuses me, if I'm being honest. Like it's messy, but in a kind of entertaining, in like a potentially really entertaining way. I'll just go for my takeaways because I don't have it memorized yet. Anderson hasn't won a sectional in a decade, and even though it lost to Mount Vernon during the regular season, that feels like a game that's up for grabs. Pendleton Heights is the favorite, but they're either going to play New Pal, who they lost to on January 12th, or they could play New Pal, who they lost to on January 12th. But New Pal has to play Greenfield Central, who beat New Pal during the regular season too. So it's all kind of a jumbled up mess, and it has a little bit of not a little bit, but it has some decent star power there with 2 excellent players, and Ellery Minch at Mount Vernon and Casey Warfel at Pendleton Heights. Greenfield Central is just really deep. They have some young kids coming up, but a lot of veteran older kids and a lot of depth there. And then who am I leaving out? New Palestine. I never know how to say it, so I should just say New Pal. New Pal. They have a new coach. They graduated Isabella Gizzi, but they're a team that, I mean, Allie Blum is just a really good athlete, and it's kind of hard to pick against a kid like that. I mean, I've seen her play a lot of softball, some soccer, and a couple basketball games. I mean, she's just a really talented athlete who could turn the tables there.
I'll tell you, one of the coaches I have more respect for, and I always hated coaching against, was Julie Shelton at Mount Vernon. Like, she'll do this. Like you'll look at the record and you'll be like, oh yeah, you know, they're not that good, or you'll see some of their wins or like really close or whatever. And you're like, oh, you know, they must be down this year, and then they end up in the regionals. Like it happens all the time. Like come tournament time, there is no coach that will have their team more ready to play and to make a run than Julie Shelton at Mount Vernon. So. Like you said, it does look like it's kind of a jumbled mess. Like there's a little bit of everything kind of going on here, but you know, you can never, ever, ever count Mount Vernon out as long as Julie's coaching. She's phenomenal.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That sectional, by the way, is being played at Pendleton Heights. It was supposed to be there last year, but they had some water issues in the floorboat and a few other things. I don't know. So they had to move it to Mount Vernon, but this year's Pendleton Heights, and they got a cool new floor. They had that matte look. It's pretty good.
That's cool.
Pretty good. Sectional 10, Cathedral. Again, one of those situations where we're going to get the matchup we want. We just don't get it when we want it. And that's Lawrence Central versus Lawrence North, assuming Lawrence North can beat Cathedral and Lawrence Central can beat Addicts in the first round. We'll get the showdown for Lawrence Township on Friday night.
Danny, I got a coach question for you.
Yeah.
In sports, as a coach, is there anything harder than trying to beat a team 3 times?
So when communicating with the team that has won twice, okay, so if I'm in Lawrence Central's locker room, it's because the reason why you beat them twice is because you're better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think there should be an extreme amount of confidence going into that game. Okay. Now that's a rivalry game. That's a township game. All those kids know each other. There was the I think the well-publicized 9-0 run in 80 seconds to win one of them. But I think Lawrence Central's got to be feeling like, hey, we can beat them 3 times because we're better. So I don't always subscribe to that. It's really hard to beat a team 3 times because generally the better team wins the first 2. Now, in that game, I don't mean to like oversimplify it. And I know we're just kind of talking about matchups. We're not really breaking it down, but Lawrence North, they've got to figure out how to handle this pressure against Lawrence Central. They've got to get into the film. They've got to learn how to spread the floor. They've got to be able to execute. That will be their charge. I probably like the game early if I'm Lawrence North. Without the big stage, without everything at stake. A lot's been made of how Lawrence Central hasn't won a sectional in forever and ever. And I think Rakestraw even talked about it on the selection show today. Now they haven't won a sectional. Yeah. And they could win a state championship. But I think Lawrence North, now is playing that kind of underdog role. And, at a junior high, real quietly, they beat Hamilton Southeastern at a junior high earlier in this week. That's when Hamilton Southeastern was number 1 in the state. But to answer your question, Josh, unpopular opinion, but I don't think it's hard to beat a team 3 times because I think if you're better, you're just better. Mm-hmm. Do you disagree with that? Do you think it's hard to beat a team 3 times?
No, I mean, like you said, if you have the better team, definitely, I don't think it's that. But both of these games have been very close. Obviously Lawrence Central, pulled away a little bit more in that second game, but in that first game, the game was over. You know what I mean? Like Lawrence North had that game won in the county tournament. But if I'm Lawrence North, if I'm Coach Thomas, I am definitely bulletin board material, underdog role. We're watching Rudy, Rocky, Marathon, because I think in their mind, they believe they can beat Lawrence Central and, maybe 3rd time's a charm.
They'll also clip off that part where Danny just, poo-pooing the idea that it's not difficult to beat a team 3 times. Courtney, where do you come in on that?
I come in from the mindset side of it is like, if you are the team that has won 2 games, you're going to win your 3rd one. Like it's already ingrained in your brain, down to the biochemistry. Like you're the better team. Like you're gonna win. On the flip side, it depends how the underdog prepares mentally. Do they not work on anything mentally and like going in the game, you're going to lose, like, because it's already been hardwired into your brain that you've lost. And so you have that disadvantage, but if you can pull out the Rudies and the Rockies and you can do some mental and some visualization, like you'll be in the ball game, with the chance and the feeling that you could win the game. That's why we play sports. It's the beauty of sports. But I agree with Danny. Like it's not hard to beat a team 3 times.
I think one thing too that Lawrence North has going for their mental side is that they just beat HSE. So I think, if I'm Steven and you just lost to Lawrence Central, okay. So they've lost to Lawrence Central once by 3 and they lost a second time by 3. So in 2 games, you've lost them by a grand total of 6 points. Okay. Then you beat the number 1 team in the state, HSE. So, yeah, like you said, I think Lawrence Central, they're definitely going into this game thinking that, hey, being a team 3 times is not that difficult. We're going to show them that we're the better team. We're going to do it for the 3rd time. But if you're Steven, like I said, I kind of like where my team's at, especially after bouncing back with that win over HSE.
Interested to see how Jayla Lampley does. She became the program's all-time leading scorer last week. Congratulations to Jayla. I'm sure she's going to come out swinging. She had a great run in last year's sectional against Warren Central. I remember covering that game, and that's one of those I'm here, I've arrived moments for her. Maybe this year it's Lola's turn. Layla Abduraki, knock on wood, is healthy. That's going to be a big difference for them. She's just such a great player. Then obviously Anaya McKenzie and everybody else they have at Lawrence Central. So it'll be a lot of fun. And then for Lawrence North, some different players stepping up in different spots we'll get into next week as we try to land this plane here. Moving down the Avon Pike sectional, we should probably address Franklin Central. They beat Plainfield on Tuesday, and that kind of felt like a swing game for them because suddenly, like Noblesville and Fishers, you kind of pencil in as, keeping competitive is kind of not a best case scenario, but probably, a realistic expectations for those games. But if you beat Plainfield, then suddenly you can go 2-2 down the stretch and you've got some good momentum. You've won 9 of 11 going into sectional. Franklin Central's in a really good spot, but then on the flip side, Roncalli, a team that they beat, Roncalli knocked off Bishop Chatard last week. Ben Davis hung with Lawrence North for two plus quarters on Saturday night, so they're more dangerous. And again, you never bet against Stan. Josh has said that countless times, so that'll be interesting. That's an interesting little foursome there in that Pike sectional at the top.
Even Decatur Central is within 10 points. So there's 5 teams within 10 Sagarin points of each other. And Decatur Central is at 15. But, like we were saying earlier, that's only three or four possessions. I expect this to be a very competitive sectional, and any 5 of those teams can win. Because like you said, Stan, obviously, he's going to be the winningest coach of all time, probably next year, maybe the year after that. But like you said, Franklin Central with that huge win over Plainfield. And I know Coach Sorbonne very, very well. He will have something special planned for sectional that they've been working on for months that he's just waiting to use in the sectional, and it'll definitely catch somebody off guard. I've seen it several times. He does a very good job of getting his teams ready for sectional play.
2 other sectionals I wanted to touch on, and then we can grab the rest kind of into just a grab all regionals talk. The Floyd Central one with Jennings County, BNL, Silver Creek. Jennings County avoids BNL side of the bracket. So if it's going to happen, BNL will have to beat Silver Creek more than likely. And then it'll more than likely be the winner of that game versus Jennings County in the final. So does BNL and Chloe Spreen and company, do they extend their sectional championship streak down there? Is this Jennings County year? We saw them end a 2-decade drought against BNL earlier this seain. So we'll see what happens there. And then the other sectional that I wanted to dive into a little bit more is the Brownsburg-Plainfield-Avon one at Avon. I called it. It just seems inevitable where we get the Brownsburg-Avon matchup, in the section, regardless of what sport. Happened again this year, where you get Brownsburg-Avon on Tuesday night and the winner plays Plainfield. So the 3 best teams are all clustered together. That'll be a really interesting one. Avon-Brownsburg split during the regular season. First win in 28 years, I think, or something like that for Avon over Brownsburg in that series. It had been a really long time. But Brownsburg got it back, and I think Brownsburg's going to have some real momentum after that overtime win against Westfield, and then they play Zionsville on Friday.
Yeah, like I said, some of it, a lot of these sectionals are close. Like you said, the Avon sectional, any of those teams can win, or any of those top 3 teams can win. Brownsburg, Plainfield, Avon, and like you said, Jennings County's won 13 consecutive sectionals. They're also the 4A, the reigning 4A state champions. Can Silver Creek or Jennings County knock them off? I mean, it's one thing to beat them during the regular season. That's one thing. Okay. But to do it in the tournament, much more difficult.
I think it was big for Jennings County to dodge it. I think if you're Bedford or Silver Creek, I think what you're saying is, we're fine. But I think you wanted to be, of those 3 teams, I think you wanted to be the team on the other side of the bracket. It's still Bedford sectional until somebody takes it. Jennings, they got the draw. They have the talent. They have the experience of beating Bedford North Lawrence, albeit at home earlier in the season. This is it for them. It laid out. There's no ping pong ball excuse anymore. They've got to do it. But I think they're in a good frame of mind to be able to do so. Seeing what Center Grove has done to just about everybody as of late, Jennings County played them just as tight as everybody. But I think it was big for Jennings to dodge now having to only play Bedford North Lawrence or Silver Creek. And honestly, ironically, I was actually at both those basketball games. I don't think it matters for Jennings County. I think Jennings County is the favorite in this sectional. And I know that people in BNL or in Bedford love to probably hear that, but this is new for them now to be able to play from an underdog role, I think. And it's not at home, it's at Floyd Central. So now all three teams are traveling. It takes that out of the mix. Bedford seems to be hosting a lot of these events, but
it says here that Jennings County will be an 8-point favorite on a neutral court against Bedford.
Yeah. And if we do get it in the second game on Friday night, when Jennings County will have presumably gotten rid of Jeffersonville in the top half, in watching that Friday PM game, Bedford North Lawrence and Silver Creek played at Bedford North Lawrence earlier in the year in a game that was the game when we talked about it on the podcast. It was like 30-29. Both teams shot horribly from the field. That's going to come down to just an oversimplified sentence of who's going to make shots. And is it going to be Ren and Shane? Are they going to make shots? Is it going to be the Spreen show? Can she get some help from Bailey and Newkirk and all of those kids? Cheryl, can they get production from their role players? But that will be an interesting one to see who wins that game for the right to presumably play Jennings County at Floyd Central for the sectional championship.
All right. Unless anybody else has anything to add, I think we're going to end it there. We'll talk about the regions in the next show because we're already going on an hour here. I'm running out of energy. I've been at this, I don't know. It's been a long day for me between writing everything for Monday, Tuesday, planning for the week, that 4-hour marathon of a selection show, and then this, which was the best part of my day.
Appreciate
obviously. That. Yeah. But yeah, this is just the start of the sectional preview, sectional discussion stuff from us. The first of the live shows. We're going to be doing a lot more of these. Shouts to the people who made it through the whole thing. Shouts to everybody who watched it. We appreciate you all very much. We'll be back probably Tuesday, Wednesday with our regular show and some hot topics to discuss. And yeah, we thank you all for listening. We'll talk to you again soon.
See ya.